in Italy in the 1920s and the 1930s, as they're going to experience economic woe as well. Now, we were talking before about how when the Great Depression comes to the United States, things are bad. Things are very bad in the United States, but it might get worse in other places around the world. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, do you remember, at our peak, do you remember what the worst unemployment percentage we had was, give or take? Right about it. It was about 25%, give or take. Now, that's awful. That's an economic disaster. But it's worse in other places. I showed you guys that chart of Germany and their unemployment numbers too. Do you happen to remember at their peak, what was their unemployment number looking like? What was? Lex, you remember?
35.
Yeah, it's like 35%, give or take in there. In Italy, it's even worse than that.
45.
Worse.
60.
Worse.
Wow, 100.
That would be really bad. In Italy, they're going to have unemployment numbers upwards of 70% unemployment. It's a disaster where 7 out of 10 Italians have no way to feed their families. They have economic ruin. Now, just like what we saw, to a lesser extent, of course, in the United States, but just like what we saw in Germany, when the economy falls apart like that, people start demanding answers. We need to solve this. Someone fix this problem. We need to go back to what we did have before. Who can make this happen? The Italian people start clamoring, saying, we need a strong leader that will pull us out of this mess. Now, I need to kind of say something at this point, because fascism has some pillars that I explained to you guys with your notes previously. Some different characteristics about it. But it's not monothematic. It's not exactly the same everywhere you go. There are differences. What we're going to see in Italy are some similarities between what's going on between the Italians and the Germans, but we're going to see some differences as well. Now, I point this out now because, first, have we seen this in Germany?
Yes.
The same economic ruin is going to be the crisis that some people are going to exploit. Now, there's a saying that says, never let a crisis go to waste. Adolf Hitler is going to take that opportunity, and he capitalizes not only on the Great Depression, but he capitalizes on the Reichstag fire as well. In Italy, they get Benito Musolini. Now, he will capitalize on this crisis of the Great Depression, as Benito Mussolini has some very similar characteristics to Adolf Hitler. He's charismatic. He's a great orator. He's a fabulous speaker. But he's also very sharp. And I say this because he has some other traits about him that have kind of set him up for this. Lux, you want to guess what emotion I'm feeling? That would be the one. Benito Mussolini, well, let me say this. When he was growing up, Mussolini was always, he was bigger and stronger than the other children he was growing up with. So he learned when he was young how to be a bully, really. And then as he got older, and the other children grew up too, he learned that he couldn't necessarily use his physical size to get what he wanted. He had to kind of bully people mentally and emotionally. And he figured out some ways to do this, to get what he wanted, by manipulation. And in his young life, he proves to be an excellent manipulator. And he kind of realizes early on that he can use this character trait to be potentially a very serious politician. Now, when he starts his political career, he has a few followers and some people that believe him, but the more he speaks, the more people follow him. And he learns some kind of tricks along the way. One of which was, he is going to actually give multiple speeches within the Roman Colosseum. Now, I got to ask because I get different responses. Are you guys familiar with the Roman Colosseum, kind of what it looks like? Okay. It's an engineering marvel. It's made hundreds of years before this. And what Mussolini does is he holds his speeches in the Colosseum, illuminated entirely by candlelight and by torches. And he tells the Italian people, you built this. Your ancestors did this. They conquered the known world. And now look at you. Now you have economic ruin. Now you have 70% unemployment. What happened to you? I can fix all your problems. I can pull us out of this mess. If you just give me the power.
What
was that, Sam?
Just find it like a couple years later, he's locked in his own house.
Here's the thing. I want to tell you something. This isn't just in the 1930s. This happens now. So I want to tell you this. If there's someone promising you that they will fix all your problems, just give them the power. Don't believe it. They're lying to you. They just want power. Mussolini just wants power. Now, the more and more of these speeches that he gives, the more followers he has. But Mussolini understands it's not enough to just have these average Italian citizens following him. He needs firepower. He needs actual and physical gunfire, rounds of ammunition. There's only 2 groups in Italy who are legally allowed to carry firearms during this time. I'll let you guess. What 2 groups of people you think are allowed to have firearms?
Military?
Military's one.
The president's like Secret Service.
Teachers? Is that what I heard it was?
Secret Service.
Secret Service of Germany.
Elliot, say it again for me, please. And the police. Now, Mussolini kind of understands something. Having these average people as his followers, that's great. You have to have numbers. You have to have people that can overwhelm. But you need firepower as well. You need actual guns. And the only groups in Italy that really have them on a large scale are the police and the military. So Mussolini does what he does. He manipulates them. He tells them what they want to hear. He tells the police and the military, I promise, I will supply you with everything you want. Name it, and I will give it to you. He's lying to them. He can't solve their problems. He can't give them whatever he wants. He wants power, and they're an avenue to that power. But they believe him. The police are now loyal to him. The military's loyal to him. And Mussolini says, now is our time. We march on Rome. They go to the royal palace. Thousands of people, and some of them armed to the teeth. And they go to the Italian king and say, you have a choice. You can either give us power, or we can kill you and take it. The Italian king will advocate the throne. He signs all of his power over to Benito Musolini, and he becomes the unchallengeable, totalitarian dictator of Italy. Now, I want to use this point right here to kind of compare and contrast. First off, does Mussolini have some similarities to Adolf Hitler? What do we see as maybe just one similarity? What's something they share? Either action, personality, what is it? Speeches, absolutely. They're both orators. They both know how to manipulate a mob. Good. What other kind of similarity might they have then? Should we do differences?
The power, they want power.
They want power. That's it. Now, Sam, I'm glad you brought that up because I'll tell you. Power's a weird thing for so many reasons. It's weird because there's nothing like it. There's hardly anything that you can make a parallel to. But when you have some, and even a tiny bit, you want more. And once you have some, You never want to give it up. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, let's talk differences real fast. How are they different? Maybe their actions or personality, anything. What's different about them?
One's Italian.
Yes, one is Italian, and one is not. Sure. Yes, Kat?
I think probably both. One is more people what they want to do, but I think Hitler had more motivation and actually wanted to do more things.
Do more things? What do you mean?
Like, do more actions, like bring brightness and all that.
Okay. Maybe he had kind of a grander plan. And when we see things kind of unfold, I think you're right. Sure, his ideas are bigger potentially. Left something else?
Mussolini just kind of walked in and said he was the power.
Okay.
Hitler did it legally, like, well, he won the
He basically just took power, right? Adolf Hitler legally got power. It was given to him. Sam, something else?
I think they had different motivation. Mussolini just wanted the power for himself. And also what Kat said about Hitler. I think I think he generally wanted make Germany this great country, but the way he did it was
Okay.
not so great.
Maybe their motivations are a little bit different. That's possible, sure. I say that because I want to go ahead and give you the third fascist state. The third fascist state we're going to talk about on the other side of the world is going to come to Japan. Now again, fascism is not monothematic. It's not exactly the same. There are differences. And when Japan falls to fascism, we're going to see that it has to come in a different way than what happens in Italy and Germany. Because in Japan, they have a ruling family. And this ruling family has been a Japanese institution for hundreds, thousands of years even. It just so happens that in the 1930s and the 1940s, this ruling family is going to be headed by Emperor Hirohito. Now, Hirohito, you have to understand something about his mindsets, about what he's been told his whole life. He's been told that one day he will be the unchallengeable ruler of Japan, that he has unspeakable power, but he rarely ever uses it. He's basically walled off in his forbidden city. Now, I will give you this little story because I think this gives a nice little window into who he is, who the emperor is. His grandfather actually died in a very strange way. His grandfather was on a pleasure cruise when he accidentally fell off the side of his ship and into the river below. But the emperor couldn't swim. So here, literally, hundreds of servants watching him in the river. And he's saying, "Get me out, I'm going to drown." And all these servants said, "I'm not going to do it." Because the punishment for touching the emperor is execution. So they watched him drown. He's thought to be the descendant of the sun god. This is his world. Now, like I say, he's kind of walled off in his forbidden city, almost like his entire life. So this guy has unspeakable power and never uses it. We need a de facto emperor. Someone who can sort of run the day-to-day things. The emperor kind of becomes more of just a figurehead. The person who's going to manipulate his way to running the empire and kind of the day-to-day things is a long-time military man. In fact, he was born into a military family. And he kind of just figures something out. He can move his way through the chain of command with really just one card that he has to play. General Tojo is going to figure something out that's really clever. He tells everyone else, these high-ranking members of Japanese society, "Oh, I have unfettered access to the emperor. I can talk to him whenever I want." And he says, "This is our course of action. If you have any questions, feel free to go talk to the emperor." Why is that so brilliant? No one talks to the emperor. He probably just made it up. But no one can question him. so he becomes the dictator of Japan. Now, we're going to talk more about Japan when I see you guys on Friday, and we'll compare it to what's going on in Russia as well. Have a good day.